Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Coffee Chats. This is our April edition of the conversation. And as you can tell, we're recording it over Zoom because we're in two different locations, unfortunately, for a short period of time. But we're so happy to be back with you all. And there's so much that's happened in the last, I feel like every month we say this, but this last month just felt like so much was going on at Bean Voyage. And so really happy to bring this conversation to you and share a few updates. And because this is a special month, we're going to maybe do a little special something at the end of this episode. So if you're watching this conversation, do stay till the end because we'll have a little fun surprise for you at the end of this conversation. But today it's my honor to introduce Sunghi and talk to Sunghi about the latest newsletter that we are just sending out today. So to start off with, Sunghi, I just want to actually check in and ask, how are you feeling today? I know we haven't talked in a couple of days, and the newsletter, we talk a little bit about that feeling of blah, right? So how are you feeling today? How are you doing?
So yeah, today I'm actually feeling quite good. I feel quite relaxed after the weekend, and I think there are a few changes that happened to my day-to-day routine that has kept my life really exciting for the past few days. So I think I am finally feeling a little bit better than I think the blah that I was feeling for a while. I think until we started talking about like what's trying to look for the term like to explain our feelings, I wasn't necessarily sure if I was like feeling burnt out or, it wasn't necessarily depression nor burnout. And I would just like wake up feeling like meh. But obviously like today I'm actually starting off a little bit better. And I know for sure that the next 2 weeks, I'm going to take some time off finally. So that's something that I'm also very, very, very much looking forward to it. Yeah.
For sure. And it's so powerful how we a lot of the times in our conversations, in our newsletters, we talk a lot about the great stuff we're doing, the wins and the things like that. And obviously we should celebrate those all the time and be very proud of it. But I think I'm just so happy and proud of the fact that we feel comfortable with this community, all of you who are watching and probably reading the newsletter, to share when we are not feeling that great. And I think April was one of those months when we were doing a lot for sure, but I think also maybe not feeling the greatest as human beings. And so we are really honored to be able to be part of this community, to feel comfortable and share with everyone. Sangeet, next question. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of the rustic breaks, and you talk a little bit about going off your regular schedule and taking that kind of disruption into the schedule. So you talk a little bit about cooking. Mentioned a little bit about your bread. Rustic bread was the right word. Sorry. The pickles that you made. What are other things that you've been doing that has been kind of providing that kind of change from the regular day to day?
And I think it's interesting because I think for most part of my life, and I know yours too, we've been like really set on like creating habits that's gonna stick with us, right? So I think early into that 2021, after like almost a whole year of like the pandemic, we're okay. 2021, it's gonna be a new slate, and we started like incorporating new rituals. I know like you've introduced yoga into your life, and I've also introduced like maybe a little bit more intensive yoga into my life, and we made sure that we're kind of like sticking to the habits. And I think there's a really like there's power to it. I think every month, I think we kind of like broke it down during pandemic because it makes it a lot easier also to kind of have this mental checkbox of like, okay, if this month my sole focus is kind of getting this done, and as long as I get that done, I'm happy. For instance, I know yoga was your challenge for a few months, and for me it's like I think the vegetarianism was also for you, and I think something similar to me of like waking up at like 4 a.m. or like 5 a.m. and I tried for 4 a.m. I think that was a little bit too much of a push. So then I adjusted to like 5:30 and 6. So kind of like setting that new challenges every month was really helpful. But then I think we've been doing that, like, obviously this new challenge for 2021, but certain things we've been doing it for more than a year in the same setting of like still in pandemic, still kind of going through the same emotional challenges and the restrictions, and like the challenge that comes from like having very much like, a lot of restrictions around where we can go, we can meet, and all of that. has been really, I think, eventually tiring me out. I think as it was tiring a lot of people out. So then recently, because I got tired of doing the same routine every single day, I was like, okay, what's one thing that I can change every day? So if I have been working from my home office for like a whole week, then I'll pick a safe space to go out and work from. So like that, I think that's what like was one thing of like, on usually on Thursday, I don't have a lot of meetings. So I can actually afford to go out and work from a coffee shop. Then I'm going to do that. Even if it means, I'm going out of my comfort zone of like my home. I have to wear my like mask everywhere. But I think that's something that everyone's like now used to. But then like here in Costa Rica, we haven't necessarily been going out a lot, right? I mean, at least for us, because we travel a lot to communities. So we're trying to always like stay in safe social bubble. But I think sometimes it's also necessary that you get like that fresh air from different areas. I think something that I've done with my yoga ritual, because I do like 15 minutes every day, I'll try to like put a level higher up, like on Down Dog app you can actually change the difficulty by one up. Then I will still feel a little bit more challenged, in the morning when I do it. Or I'll also have like an edit workout routine to be done right after the yoga. So it's not only, one thing that I've been doing for like more than a year, but something more. Whether that's like abs workout or, squats, like, 20 squats, like right before the shower, and like just trying to add like new elements that I haven't done for a while. But I think a lot of experiment for me has come in the kitchen space. So I think if you know me, like I'm a big foodie. I mean, I know you know you know me. So I've been really experimenting with new recipes that I've never really tried before, and that's been really keeping my day to day, I think, a little bit more exciting, because I know there's something very small, but something that I can look forward to. But I still do obviously think it's not easy for, I think, anyone to be doing this again, right? Like we've gone through this last year in April of like attending virtual conferences, and having to do that again this year of like most of the events being online. So, but yeah, I think there are little things that maybe we could do on a daily basis that could spice up our days a little bit. Yeah. Hmm. You're muted. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. It's definitely so important to be able to kind of get that get that kind of shake up in your routine. And I think that's something that yeah, I'm personally definitely learning from you, and I think something that I hope to definitely implement now. So what's something personal that's coming up for you is that you're about to take a couple weeks off. It's not even, I don't think it's even 2 weeks. It's actually probably a bit less, but I don't actually, I was trying to remember when was the last time you took time off, like a significant time off. And I know you've taken a couple of days here and there. I know you went on a camping trip at some point last year. I remember like here and there, but I don't think you've taken actually a good amount of time for yourself, which we as leaders are something that we're learning to do well. I know for a fact that that's one of the things I struggle a lot with. I planned, I'm currently visiting my parents and my family, didn't plan it very well. Booked a bunch of meetings, and like, I got here, I was like, oh shit, I should have probably taken more time off, right? So I know for a fact that this is something that we've struggled with and trying our best to do. So as you're going on this trip, first of all, wishing you a lot of relaxation and a lot of fun for sure. What's one thing you're going to do, you think, for the next couple of weeks that you haven't really thought of that's going to maybe disrupt the regular routine that you usually have?
I think, yeah, that's a really interesting question. I feel like taking time off is something that we really encourage our teammates to do, right? Like we don't have a set policy per se saying like you can't take any days off, right? Like it's like almost unlimited. We do have obviously guideline of like how you need to make sure that the work is being done in time, and we can't just take time off when there's like obviously like a whole bunch of deadlines coming up. But I think we're quite good in encouraging our teammates to take time off. But I think when it comes to us taking personal time off, I think we're quite bad. And I know, like calling myself out and calling, I think, both of us out on like, we as founders have been working on the weekends because, for us, that's like the priority. And, we would prioritize getting work done well over, I think, our well-being at times. And like, I know like on Sundays you probably, I get emails from you sometimes, and you will get things too. And I know it doesn't really like for me, like I know how to snooze it off, but then at the same time, I think eventually, like when we're having like so much cumulative screen time, like we need to find like some sort of like oasis of like where there's like not a single screen time there. And I think for me personally, it's been also like my community here is great, but then we are also like not seeing each other often, and we oftentimes rely on communication via telephone or like different social media. So is my communication with my family and my partner and all that. So I think even when I'm taking time off, like I'm not actually taking time off the screen. Like I'm still kind of communicating on like WhatsApp or like iMessages or Instagram with my friends and my family. And that doesn't necessarily like give you that break that you need to be really overcome this like fatigue that we all have. So I'm really looking forward to taking this time off because I'm actually planning to travel like in a very obviously isolated manner. Just go to places where I know are taking good care, like like researching in advance of like not necessarily going to like a super touristy place, but booking like a small Airbnb and staying there for a while. And I'm really looking forward to like not logging into like I'm gonna log out the moment after like I know I'm taking time off. Like obviously like I think WhatsApp I will have to have it on just in case of like emergency, but like Instagram and Facebook and everything else that is constantly like giving you this like alerts that obviously like I love my friends, I love the apps, but I think it's like it's important that we do take this time off. And I think that's definitely my big priority this coming break of like staying away from it. Mhm.
And for folks that are watching this,
Mhm.
please do not email Singy. I'm just kidding.
Just kidding.
But
Yeah.
please, yeah, be mindful that
Mhm.
taking time off. And I might be, I was logging into our Instagram yesterday because I'll be managing it for a bit for the next couple. I was excited. I was like, I haven't used our Instagram in a bit. So I responded to a message. I felt pretty good about that. So that was, I'm excited to kind of test out the Instagram game.
Mhm.
I want to ask a little bit about some of the updates you've written down, considering the time as well, and being mindful of some of the incredible updates you've shared. I think the one that for me has been the most exciting and the one that you've been mostly engaged in, obviously the others as well. But I think I want to talk a bit about sales because we don't talk as much about it,
Mhm.
especially because it's a lot of behind the scenes work, right? It's not as much of like outside. So I want to spend some time today talking about it. Tell us a bit more about some of the exciting partnerships. Obviously, I think we're still finalizing contracts. We probably can't give out names and stuff, but in general, just give us a bit of an overview of how we are. I read a little bit about how it's grown 50%. I know that's a big number for us.
Mhm.
How that process been going and where we are at this point of the year.
Right. So right now we have shipped out most of the samples that have been requested from our buyer partners. So I think maybe speaking about like the exciting element about like how there's been like an upsurge in the interest coming from like the buyers that have discovered us over the past 1 year, have contacted us. We gotten back in touch with them as soon as we knew the harvest was ready. And then we've been like obviously like communicating with them throughout to kind of keep in touch with like what's their expectation from our coffee producers coffee this year, the price range and the quality. And then we have been also meanwhile diligently copying and sampling through some of the most recent harvests, right? Like throughout like the first quarter was like a lot of our time was spent on like analyzing the quality and then seeing the potential and making the mental map of like who might be interested in this coffee. So that's kind of like obviously like by now it's done, thankfully. And last few weeks we've kind of like spent time packing these individual samples into little packages and then literally shipping it out to roasters and partners that are that have been like very interested in cupping. Right now we are hearing kind of feedback. So at this point obviously we are not sharing any of their names because none of the contracts have been signed yet, right? Like in terms of like the actual physical work that's currently being done. Like this week is like when it's being like finalized for some buyers, and soon we'll be able to share like where you can go and buy women powered coffee from our coffee producers. Hopefully, in somewhere in your city there should be one buyer, one roaster selling it. But most of the buyers this year have come from Europe, and then we have some coming from the US, and we are also exploring the South Korean market. So nothing certain yet, but some exciting development that's happening. One challenge, however, that we've had with coffee producers this year, and I think one of the constant challenge that we have, is because our target has been working with smallholder coffee producers, right? And that means their lot size is very small. Oftentimes there are 5 to 10 bags. Maybe if they're bigger, 20 to 30 bags, but that's often quite rare that the high quality, they will have like 20 to 30 bags of high quality coffee to be exportable. So there's like the challenge of like finding the right buyers that's willing to consolidate and offer from 5 different producers instead of just one, and just finding that middle ground of that conversation has been, I think, where we spent a lot of time communicating and making sure everybody understands like the nitty gritty elements of like the supply chain and the complexity of it. Hopefully by end of this year, we'll feel comfortable saying, okay, like we have our secret sauce. I think this year it's still kind of an area of like, we individually are like, trying to like meet where the needs are for the market and for the producers. But in overall, I think we, at least from the ones that we have somewhat kind of purchased in advance from our coffee producers, most of them are, I think, right now being booked out. So that's like, I think, a really, really exciting news. So far on average, you're guaranteeing at least 200% more than the C market price. So I think that's also really a good sign. So we hope to kind of like continue that on that route, and then keep you all updated on where you can go get our women powered coffee. Yeah.
For sure. And I think it's that growth that we're starting to see. I mean, even within Europe, we'd worked in a couple of countries in the past, and this year we're starting to see quite drastic expansion. I know that some of the coffee is going all the way to, I think, some Middle Eastern countries. East Asia is being a big part of our conversation. So just really exciting to see those numbers, and all of the credit sincerely for this one goes to you, Sanki, for leading the entire process, and actually managing a very, very complex supply chain, and then making it so simple for everyone involved. So super, super exciting. And I think last week we were talking internally, and I think we were getting some scores back from buyers, and the numbers that generally we're seem quite high comparative to the past years. And so I know we had some worry around like quantity, but it seems like generally the quality that we're getting is actually excellent quality. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I think we've been really impressed by the hard work of all of the participants in our network, right? Like the producers have been working so hard over the year to really deliver the quality in their cup. So last year, on average, a lot of producers got around 84, 85 on their score, which is really good. Like, 83 points and above is like specialty coffee. And given that they're like smallholder and they've never really been doing a lot of processing on their own, like 84 is like a really good starting point. And this year, some of our producers who've obviously offered last year also, their score has gone up to like 86, 87. And I think that was really impressive. I think that's like a high quality coffee. Like, you can proudly say it's, really, really good coffee. And that's not necessarily like internal analysis alone, but more of like the combination of like the external ones, like, the buyers who've already copped other offerings from like other suppliers everywhere, and then them giving us the feedback of like, this producers have done a really excellent job. I think has been really like reassuring to us, to say, okay, like, albeit the size of the lot that we offer right now, and then I think the newness of like our program, of like how it's still quite new, right? Like, our market program is like new compared to other traders who've been trading for like years and like years. I think we have a lot more to learn, to improve, but I think we are really hopeful that we'll be able to kind of like hopefully provide a reliable platform that really speaks for the smallholder women coffee producers that are there, and also for the buyers that are like willing to really make an impact through their purchasing. So yeah.
For sure. And I think that the relationships on both front, right? I think it strengthens every single year. And so as we see the quality improve, we see the quality of not just the coffee, but the relationships involved. And I think one story that was quite powerful that just came out of that went even beyond that trade of coffee was the story of one of our producer partners who wasn't able to process as much coffee, was facing some kind of a challenge at a household level, and then we had one of the buyers step up and actually contribute. And I thought that was a very touching story that goes beyond the quality of any coffee. It actually is about the quality of the relationships that we build. So that's just also really powerful.
Yeah, I think maybe this one we can give a shout out because it's already been kind of done by our friends at Girls Who Grind Coffee. They introduced this program called Chick to Chick initiative where I believe it's 10% of their retail sale that goes back to coffee producers who've already been supplying the coffee, and it's kind of like on top of their willingness to pay equitable price in the in the first place for their green coffee, right? So our producers, the way we do green coffee like negotiation is that producers suggest to us what's the desirable price rather than going from like the backward of like, this is how much the roaster is willing to pay. Then you have to kind of like meet the requirements. It's the other way around of like producers first of all suggest to us based on their cost of production calculation and like how they feel about their coffee, what they think is a good price, and then we communicate that to our buyers, and obviously we support so that they're able to meet at the middle point where both parties are satisfied. But on top of that, Girls Who Grind Coffee, when they were launching this initiative, did an incredible, I think, job of like making sure that producers are actually compensated for the stories that they share with the clients and the roasters and everything else that comes beyond that green coffee, right? Through this initiative that they introduced, and that really came at a really right time for Monse, who delivered early on this year, and she wasn't able to actually process much of her coffee this year because of her health concern, and that was like a really really great help for her as she was like recovering from her health complications, but also kind of like as she was starting a new family, right? Like she just had a baby, and I think that's just like a really beautiful thing. And Monse this year, also when she was able to kind of like start processing, she only processed like a very small quantity of coffee, but specifically for Girls Who Grind Coffee. And it's always really beautiful to see how this relationship forms and evolve, and they're really there for each other. And we are just really lucky to be witnessing it all. Yeah.
For sure. It's honestly so touching. I think for our team, that was a really powerful moment where not much of it was orchestrated by us. It just naturally happened. And I think that's the beauty of the work that I think we're trying to do is hopefully get to a place where we as an organization don't have to exist for these kind of beautiful relationships to be formed. So thank you for sharing that. I know we're about to be at the last bit of this conversation, and to kind of switch things up today, I thought maybe we'll try something very different. It's not very different for the internet probably, but very different for us definitely, because we talk a little bit about going outside of our routine. So for this month's video, I thought we would wrap up the video by watching another video of someone kind of talking about a bit about coffee. So if you're someone watching this video, you're not really interested in coffee, the next 5 minutes might not be super fun and relevant, because we're going to geek out about AeroPress, and we're going to talk a little bit about the ultimate AeroPress recipe that was shared by James Hoffman. And we're going to watch that video and we're going to talk about it. We're going to share if that's our ultimate recipe or not. And maybe in the future months, maybe in the next month's episode, we'll actually make our version of it for you all. So Sanghi, are you ready for this video? I knew you haven't watched this video, have you?
Oh, and you didn't tell me about this until like 30 minutes ago when we started. I was like, okay.
A surprise, but here we go. We'll watch this together. Are you able to see this, Sanghi?
Yeah.
Let me know if you can hear it, okay?
In this video, I'm going to be talking through my recommended AeroPress technique. Now, this is a technique that I think will be a great default technique. You may want to vary from this. You might want to do other things. I would recommend exploring the world of AeroPresses, but this is a technique designed to do sort of the least amount necessary to get to fantastic coffee reliably every single time. A technique designed to set you up for success whenever you brew coffee with your AeroPress. So let's
quick question here. Have you do you have like a guru in terms of like brewing coffee and learning about brewing that you watch? I watch James quite a bit, but is there someone that you've watched that?
Oh, I actually really like James's video. Yeah, I've been watching his.
Very, very simple. I find that very kind of helpful.
Let's start at the beginning with the recipe or ratio that I would recommend. And this immediately has a little bit of choice. I'm using a light roasted coffee, and I like high extraction here. It will give me quite a strong cup with a lower ratio. So I'm using 55 grams per liter, or in this brew, 11 grams to 200 grams of water. Darker roasts, you may not want to extract to the same extent. So I might recommend 60 or 65 grams a liter and not extracting quite as much from it. In terms of setting up your AeroPress, not much to do. Pull your plunger out, put paper into the paper holder. There's no need to rinse your filter paper here. Pop it in, lock it in, and place it on top of whatever you're going to brew into. You don't.
So I know that we don't actually use much paper, and I was actually hoping he would talk a little bit about it, but he doesn't actually talk about like not using paper. Do you know if like paper is preferred over like yeah.
I think depends on like what you want to get in your cup, right? Like for clarity, I think paper filter is much better because it kind of absorbs all the oil away from coffee. But I think metal filter really gives the silkier body for sure. I think because it lets the natural oil that coffee has come through without it having been like absorbed. Yeah. But I know, yeah. I mean, I think like environmentally, I think we prefer metal filter. Although I think there are times, or I think when I do, especially like B60, I do really like paper filters. I have this like conflicted feeling of like I love that clarity in my cup. In kind of like making like compromises of like maybe there are other areas that I can cut the usage. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm running out of my AeroPress.
You don't have to brew into a carafe. You can brew into a mug, cup, whatever you like, as long as it's pretty sturdy because you're going to be pressing on it in a second. Now let's talk about grind size. For this brew, I'm actually grinding really pretty fine, finer than I would even brew for, say, a pour over. So getting a little bit closer to that kind of nearly espresso range. If you're using a medium or darker roasted coffee, you may not want to grind this fine. It will certainly increase your extraction and strength, but it may not taste good. So there's no one answer on grind size here. I'm going to load this coffee into the AeroPress. I'm going to boil my water.
I think this is quite interesting. I don't actually brew AeroPress this way. So I invert it. Yeah. So this is quite, I don't know how you usually brew
I
it.
like the inverse version too, but I feel like there are two ways. Yeah, there are two different recipes, and I don't know what's better, to be honest. I'm not actually a big AeroPress fan. I think B60 is my go-to, and I don't know where my AeroPress went. So it's like I haven't actually brewed an AeroPress in like a year.
Wow.
I feel like I haven't actually done that because I left it in Costa Rica and I don't know where it went. And then I think when we were living together, we had the AirPress of yours, but then I like my go-to is usually V60. So yeah. But I think when you're traveling though, I think AirPress definitely is one of the go-to because it's like really compact and it's light, it doesn't break. Yeah.
For sure. Speaking of traveling, this reminded me of that one time we made an AeroPress in an office in New York. I don't know if you have this in your memory as well. Whenever I see a glass being placed underneath an AeroPress, for me, no go. No.
Yeah, the carafe just like broke because I guess it wasn't able to like hold the pressure that we were putting. Although like, it's really like common that you see a glass carafe to be kind of served, right? Like to be pressed on. I don't know, maybe we got like very unlucky with ours.
Yeah.
Now, one more note on water temperature. Again, with lighter roasts, you can go all the way up to boiling, and I would recommend that. However, for medium or darker roasts, I would drop my temperature the darker the roast is. For a really dark roast, I'd be brewing even under 90 degrees Celsius, down maybe at 85. For a medium roast, 90 to 95 might be a sweet spot if you have a temperature-controlled kettle. Start your timer, then you're going to add 200 grams of water. Try and get the coffee wet as quickly as you can as you pour. And if it's all wet, just pour in the middle and get up to 200 grams, or whatever ratio you're using. Now, you don't have to use a pour-over kettle like this one, a gooseneck kettle. You can use a regular kettle, you could use a pot that you boiled on the stove. It doesn't really matter. It's just about getting the water in and getting all the coffee nice and evenly saturated. Obviously, we're going to move this off our scale. We're not going to press on the scale. There's no need for that. And we're just going to wait for 2 minutes. Here's when I started earlier.
I thought the video paused for a sec when he was like, what's your go-to recipe at AeroPress? I know like that's your go-to tool.
For sure. I mean, it obviously depends in terms of ratio. I think it depends on how many people I'm making coffee for. This was the first time I learned. So there's a version, I think, second episode of this series talks about some questions, and it talks about like quantity and how much coffee you should brew, and doesn't recommend brewing coffee for a lot of people. Like you're not supposed to actually kind of, sometimes if we have like 3 people or so, I'll use an AeroPress and put a bunch of coffee in.
Yeah, use bypassing.
Yeah, I'll have like 30 grams or something, like a lot of coffee. And I would kind of use that as a starting point. And I think it's not a great idea to actually make so much coffee. It's like 1 or 2 cups, but not that much. And so I need to definitely recalibrate my AeroPress recipe, but I usually do the inverted method as well. I like to put around 15 grams of coffee. I think is, if I'm making for myself and I want a little bit more like leftover coffee so that I can have a second cup, I'll go with 15 gram. And then I think I use a 1 to 16. And I think he said 1 to 20 apples.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But yeah, it's but I usually go for like the regular 1 to 16. And I like to have like 1.5 cup of coffee, I think, in the morning. More than 2 is too much for me. I get really jittery, and less than that, it's always like, oh, I wish I had a bit more coffee. And then I think I do prefer lighter roast coffee over darker roast coffee. And I didn't realize the thing about the temperature. So that's something I'll be taking actually use like hotter water for like lighter roast coffee. I think
to extract more. Yeah.
When you get to 2 minutes, what we're going to do is start to swirl. It's going to be a very gentle swirl. Make sure that you're holding both the piston and the base of the unit. Just give it a gentle swirl. That's it. You're not trying to create a vortex in there. You're just trying to gently knock the ground coffee that's formed a crust down so it starts to sink to the bottom. Then you're going to wait for about 30 seconds. And then you're going to start to press. Now, when it comes to pressing, I would recommend being relatively gentle. You shouldn't be leaning into this. You should be able to do it comfortably with your body away from the AeroPress. So not pressing too hard at all. Press gently, press even.
It feels like it's a sponsored one for us to kind of like promote AeroPress. I don't know. Yeah. Fun fact about AeroPress though, it's developed by Frisbee manufacturer. You knew that, right?
The same person that developed, like they made the Frisbee.
I believe so. I think it's Frisbee, or like one of the toy company made AeroPress. Yeah.
It's an incredible, I think the first episode on this video series, I mean, again, we don't get sponsored by any of these people. So if you're watching, I don't like it, but no revenues coming for us. But
no revenues coming from any of our YouTube videos, just so you know.
Yeah. At this point. The episode 1, I think, does talk a little bit about history, so that's interesting. And once you've waited 30 seconds, you're going to press all the way until you've pressed every drop of greatness out of this press down into the carafe or the cup below. For a 200 ml brew for this grind size, that takes me about 30 seconds. Once you pressed, pull back just a little bit, That'll help prevent drips. Turn it upside down. Obviously, you can clean up now, pop the coffee out, give it a rinse, give it a clean, reset for the next day. And you've got, I hope, a great cup of coffee. Now, if it's not a great cup of coffee, again, it's going to be the grind size and maybe the temperature that you're going to tweak. If you've got too much bitterness in your cup, chances are you might have ground a bit fine or brewed a bit hot for the coffee that you're using. If you've got a bit of sourness in your cup, well, the opposite. Feel free to get to maximum temperature and try grinding a little bit finer. Now, this, I think, gets you to a great cup of coffee in the simplest, neatest way possible with no additional unnecessary steps. But it's not the one way to brew the AeroPress. So down below, I've linked to a bunch of other AeroPress recipes. If you want something that is your kind of daily driver, your regular brew method, I hope this is it. But if you want to play and explore and have some fun with an AeroPress, which I think is kind of half the point, then I would recommend checking out how other people use it. Explore those recipes. They're all linked in the description box down below. But now I want to hear from you. How are you making your AeroPress these days?
Maybe we should send this video back to James and be like, this is how we do it while watching your video.
Yeah, I mean, if we have actually the video of us doing it, that will actually be really good.
For sure. Maybe I know we'll see each other in a week or two. So maybe when we see each other, we can actually make a video.
Yeah, making James's recipe.
I know. That's the kind of end of that video. So I'll stop there. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation, and thanks Angie for participating in this little video watching process. Never tried it. Let us know if you do more, and maybe we'll start generating revenue for this.
I know, I feel like I'm the worst in reacting to videos because some people are like really good at like reacting to videos. Like some people who are like watching movies will be commenting on every single thing that's happening. Whereas like I feel like we are both of like people that like to absorb things as they're happening and to be just observe.
It's like learning. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that's cool. That's why he's saying okay.
Sure.
Halfway through, I was like, I need to react more.
Maybe we'll find more reaction videos in the future. That's going to be instantaneous reactions, but I thought it was a generally quite simple recipe, and I love that the way James does the process of educating people that are just regular brewers of coffee that want to learn how to do different things and maybe have an AeroPress but have not perfected the grind size or their temperature, things like that. I think it's a great platform for sure for learning. So thanks for participating and thanks for being part of this conversation. Thank you everyone for watching as well. If you've made it this far, it's going to be a fairly longer version of our regular coffee chats, but thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next month with our May coffee chats. Take care, everyone.
Bye.